I just wanted to introduce to you the woman who will be moderating these two this evening in their conversation, Dr. Naomi Torres-Mackie. She is an amazing, amazing clinical doctor based out of Brooklyn. She practices at Lenox Hill and also teaches in the psychology department at Columbia. And also, most notably, what ties her to this man right here is that she is the head of research at the Mental Health Coalition. And yeah, she knows everything. So they will be chatting about some questions that Naomi has for them, questions that they have for each other, but then we also hope to kind of chat with you guys. So if there's anything that you think of, put a pin in it and you can ask a question after.
So you guys want to continue?
As you just heard, I'm Naomi Torres-Mackie. I work with Kenneth at the Mental Health Coalition. So for those of you who don't know, MHC is a nonprofit founded by Kenneth Cole. In 2020, I've been a part of the organization, been lucky enough to have been a part of the organization basically since its beginning. We're really focused on mental health as it stands today, shifting culture on mental health, destigmatizing mental health, building community. We're a partnership of 34 of the biggest, most impactful mental health nonprofits in the US. And we also really focus on resources and connecting need to resources. We know that there's a lot of resources out there, but folks don't often know how to find them and where to find them, so we help with that. We're thrilled about this collaboration. 10% of the proceeds go to the Mental Health Coalition, which is fantastic. So really happy to be here today. I'm going to introduce our panelists, which you all pretty much know and love. I have some items to share with you. All right. So Kenneth Cole is an American designer, social activist, and visionary who believes business and philanthropy are interdependent. His global company, Kenneth Cole Productions, is a relentlessly optimistic global lifestyle brand that supports the hectic world of the young professional. For over 40 years, the brand has created modern, versatile, and functional essentials that are tech-infused and purpose-inspired to provide the perfect balance of style, comfort, and performance. By raising awareness, encouraging action, and leveraging its unique purpose-driven platform, the Kenneth Cole brand seeks to make a meaningful impact on people's wardrobes and communities in need with a focus on mental health and our collective well-being. Welcome, Kenneth. Thanks for being with us. And then we have Rachelle. Hi, Rachelle. So Rachelle MacPherson is a Nebraska native turned New Yorker who started off her career in media in 2008 with guestoftheguest.com. In 2011, she was named one of the most influential women in tech by Fast Company before switching gears to fashion in 2016. After the birth of her second son, Dash, Rachelle turned to embroidery to fight off postpartum depression and anxiety, a skill her grandma Rita taught her as a kid. She has now turned that hobby into a company where embroidery empowers people to give a damn about causes they care about. Thanks for being with us. So we are going to have time at the end for Q&A, so if any questions come up, definitely hold on to them. That would be great, but I am lucky enough to start us off with some questions of my own. So let's start kind of with you two and what drives you. You both have such a clear kind of passion for social impact with a focus on mental health. So I'd love to know kind of what drives you towards focusing on mental health and why now?
I'll start because I also want to welcome Kenneth to the Townhouse. He's been a huge inspiration to me before I knew him, and now that I met him, I have to say he's living up to the name and surpassing the name. So very happy to have you in my life, Kenneth. And his words, we talk about how when I moved to New York in 2005, the billboards, the Kenneth Cole billboards were everything. And we share something because we have to distill something down to very short words. Me on sweater, him on billboard. So I think we both have affinity for words. So welcome and thank you for coming. So I guess I didn't have a plan to start this company or to really dive into mental health, but it truly is how the company got started. And so I think this year in particular, I wanted to, everyone was asking me, what are you going to do in 2024? It's an election year. You guys are so activists. You're activists. You're political. And I was just like, I think we should start with mental health because this is going to be a very hard year. for people who are struggling with mental health, and also someone that is just quote unquote normal, although we hate that word normal. I think it's going to be a really hard year for all of us, and so I really jumped at the opportunity with Kenneth Cole to do this, and was so impressed by the work he's been doing, because I think it's really needed at the start of this year to kind of focus in on how do we take care of ourselves going into this year. That's going to be really chaotic. So
Absolutely.
So our business is 40 years old. Started when I was 7. And or I refer to it as the 20th anniversary of our 20th anniversary. But from the very beginning, I've always felt that what we stand in is not as important as what we stand for, and what you wear is not as important as of what you're aware. And that's been a big part of the platform of what we have done throughout this journey. And I do think that if you can connect with people about more than just what's on their body, but what's on their mind, you can create such a more meaningful relationship as a brand and as a business. And it's so much more sustainable than a heel height or a hem length or any other fashion trends. So it's what we've always done. And then for years we talked about HIV, and I felt that was this ominous dark cloud. It certainly affected our industry and many other industries, and no one else wanted to talk about it. So we spoke about the fact that nobody wanted to speak about it. So, which is essentially a stigma, and what the reality people live through, who in fact were struggling with HIV. And then a couple of years ago, it became apparent that 1 in 200 people, and it was unquestionably a pandemic, not anywhere as contagious as COVID, but way more lethal. But only 1 in 200 people were living with mental health, with HIV, but 1 in 4, I came to learn, were living with mental health issues. And there was this desire within the company to work on this anti-stigma initiative within our company, become a stigma-free company, so we reached out to Naomi, and Naomi says, we'd love you to work on a campaign, for mental health as you did with HIV. And by the way, I came to realize that 1 in 4 living with mental health issues, but it's actually, we believe 4 in 4. Because if it isn't you, it's somebody you love, somebody in the family, in the community, the workplace, but everybody is struggling in some way with it. So, and this was such an ambitious and maybe crazy ambitious initiative to take on. But so we said to them, well, if we're going to do this is so much bigger than NAMI. And they said, well, bring in anybody you want. So we reached out to the next 33 or 34 largest service NGOs in the country, and they all said we're in. So we created this platform now with the goal of changing the narrative, changing culture, and making it easier for people to talk about their struggles, because you can't fix it unless you do. And the toughest part is 2 out of 3 of those people struggling are doing so in the proverbial shadows, because there isn't a vocabulary, there aren't the tools to help them navigate their struggles. So, and that also a lot of it comes into talking about it. So stigma, I believe, is perception, and I think, because people say, well, what the hell do you know about all this stuff? And I'm not a public health person, I'm not a mental health person, but we're in the perception business. That's what we do. That's kind of what the fashion business is. And I do think we can somehow influence the narrative, and then at the end of the day, we bring together all these extraordinary companies, and we've created this unprecedented platform of resources. So then we say, okay, now we can connect needs to resources, and we've done some amazing things, and we've done it now with all of them. We've got all the tech that we're working with, which has never happened before, Facebook and Instagram and Google and TikTok, and they all now, for the first time, are collaborating. Everybody wants to do the right thing. At the same time, this is all unintended consequences. These guys are very successful at what they do. It's unprecedented. They've built communities that nobody could have dreamed of at any point. And at the end of the day, there's been impact, and very significant and serious impact. So, but they want to be part of the solution. Our goal is to make them part of the solution, and we're working on some very big things. I don't know if you heard about it, but we can talk about that at a different time. But it's been a great journey, and I love what Rachelle does, and I love that we can do fun stuff like this. And she's lacking in energy, though I saw one new.
I have to say, I like
she may put you to sleep. But
I like that I don't know what's happening here. This is Andrew's realm. Where's Andrew? I like that the tech people are getting involved, because they're kind of part of the problem.
I don't
right?
know.
Like, they're the reason we.
But they're not the enemy, though. They have to be part of the
They're-
solution.
they- okay.
Otherwise, you can't fix
I
it.
need to hear that. I have a preteen, so.
Yeah, well, and yeah, it is a
It's
little
probably-
funky. Something that you both have touched on that I think is so important is the impact of words, right? And this collaboration is quite literally about words, almost normal, and I have issues, which I think are wonderful statements in themselves. But would love to hear more about the collaboration. How was it born? And with these words, what impact do you hope it will have for both of you?
Well, he was basically stalking me until I answered. So their team reached out, and obviously I'm such a huge fan. It made total sense. What we do at Lingua Franca is try and start conversations, just like Kenneth was saying. Fashion is so much more powerful when you can build a community out of it. And we started our first store on Bleecker, and we actually, one of the requirements, it was when Bleecker was dead, and one of the requirements was we had to host, we had really low rent, but we had to host a weekly event. And I was like, oh my God, this is gonna kill me. It actually built the brand. The entire brand was built by real life people. And they all wanted to put messages on their chest because it starts conversations. And I think, finding both this community and the humor and things. So when we were thinking of sayings, we wanted it to be something that was serious. It's a very serious issue, but it has to have a little levity, and it has to be something that's broad enough that someone wearing in a street could see. And the truth is, we're all human. We all have issues by the nature of the human condition. So I loved the I have issues. Now, Kenneth really wanted to do fuck normal. And my husband was in the room said, you can't use the F word. And he's right, because I'm like a very conservative.
You can use it, but it's fucked.
It's fraud. So we played around a lot with that one because fuck normal is so good. And I think it may come back. We were talking about maybe the t-shirt, the big one, what would be fuck normal? But it had to be something that when you saw it on the street, it immediately made you kind of think, hey, there's somebody in this world that's also struggling. Also think, wow, the world feels a little less lonely. There's people out there willing to make this thing of the human condition. I have an issue. So that's kind of why I really felt like this was a fun collaboration. And based on the DMs I'm getting on Instagram, I think it's really resonated. So I'm really, it's been one day, but I'm very excited by it. The conversation is already starting.
So we've done this for a long time, and I have issues with the message that we've used for a long time, and it engages people in interesting ways, and people respond to it, and it's a little self-deprecating. And the goal is how do you say as much as you can in as few words as possible, and that is the challenge, because everybody, I believe, has ADD, and if it isn't clinically diagnosed, then socially induced. But everybody today is doing multitasking and distracted with all these things. So how do you kind of connect with them in that little moment of time in a profound and as meaningful way as you can? So that's something that we've always tried to do, and I think that we're living in sound bites, and everything is very succinct and to the point, and you've got to communicate what you can, and how do you connect people in meaningful ways, and it's something that we've always tried to do, and how do you want to introduce yourself
And
to the
don't
world?
forget, every letter costs money, because it's all hand done on 20 or 36th Street. So we also had to take into consideration how that's that.
Right, and Rachelle is actually knitting it herself.
I'm like, it needs to be shorter.
She goes home every night after work and she starts knitting.
And I made all the hundreds of them I made.
Right.
Anyway.
So we didn't want to make it that burdensome. So the question is, but invariably that is what resonates with people. And how do you do it in kind of a self-deprecating way? And how do you evoke and engage people? And how do you inspire people? And that's the challenge. And it's a kind of an interesting and a fun challenge. But I'll stop there.
Awesome. Yeah, I think this idea of universality is really central there. The human condition that we're all kind of plagued with, and then seeing these words, I can see them right there, and I connect with that, right? I'm not alone, and that's so powerful. There's, yeah, what do you have?
We should have done one of the other. We should both be wearing it, whatever. We'll figure it out next time.
And another piece is the humor behind it. So Kenneth, I had a question for you about humor, playfulness, and a kind of cleverness, that these things feel so central to KCP and your brand. And I wonder if you had thoughts on why do you think people connect with that?
Maybe I'm not going to use this. You guys can still think about it?
Yeah.
So, I don't take what we do very seriously, truthfully, at the end of the day. If every shoe store in America is to say closes tomorrow, 12 o'clock, hardly an American would go barefoot for 14 years. Nobody needs what we sell. Our goal is to make you think you do and make you think it again and go ahead. But at the end of the day, we have to make you want it. We have to make you feel good about having engaged with it, and we also can't be delusional. But there are things. So I don't take what we do very seriously, but I take the world seriously, and I take what we're dealing with in the context of what we're doing seriously. And so how do you communicate that? How do you message that? In a serious but not serious way. And so that's what we try to do with a lot of our messaging, and we try to find a balance. One campaign in the past was very kind of sombering and serious, and one was much less so. So, but that's what we tried to do as a brand over the years. And I think that what Rachelle and Lingua Franca have done is terrific. I mean, interestingly, about a year and a half ago, they were making they did a sweater on I read banned books, and I said that's amazing because I needed a Christmas gift for my wife, and she's working on a documentary on banned books, so this was perfect. And then there was one this week on actually a month or so ago, which was Barbie's everything.
I'm just Ken.
I'm just Ken. Barbie's everything.
No, it was I'm just Ken. You walked in and it was like on the display when you came here.
So as an ode to Barbie and to my wife, we did.
Yeah, it's true. The Lingua Franca, the statements and the messages are so kind of empowering. And there's this element of stepping into kind of boldly who you are and really sharing that. And so Rachelle, where did that come from, that kind of focus?
That was all organic. It was all people finding. What's great about having a company that you hand embroider words onto, you have to be very thoughtful because it is done by hand on cashmere. And so people that have a message to spread really came to us from the beginning. We've done things with Margaret Atwood, we've done things with Judy Blume, Pen America, the Whitney. It's just been incredible who we've got, Kenneth Cole, who we've gotten to meet along the way. But what he was saying about having this fashion brand really struck me because sometimes in bed when I'm thinking like spiraling in my anxiety-ridden panic, I'm thinking about, okay, well, why am I even doing this company? There's so much going on in the world. I have this incredible privilege. I want to help the world in some way. Why am I doing it through fashion? I have found that this company has been able to change the world in ways that nothing else has done that I've done before, and I think that's been very surprising, to be honest. People like fashion. People care about what they're wearing, what they're consuming, and they want to be thoughtful. And so if you can do all that and also have a conversation and build a community, that's the why. I always think about if Lingua Franca didn't exist tomorrow, what would be missing from the world? That's kind of what I go into my day thinking about. And it's not going to be this pant that we made, which is amazing and made out of silk, or this incredible sustainable line, which is upstairs hidden in the closet because it's usually here, which you should all go and kind of try and find. They're not going to miss that because there's a lot of that happening. But they are going to miss the stories we told through those clothes and the community we built around both the sayings, but also just, the storytelling. So yeah, we have these on, but we're all going to be here meeting and mingling, and I really am a huge fan of in real life. I really think that I crave it. I think we talked about this on our Zoom. One of the things with mental health that has been really challenging for me is I feel like I have way more friends than I've ever had before, but I don't actually see them in real life. I have text message chains or DMs, and I feel like I know what's going on in their lives because I see it on my Instagram, but I'm actually never really seeing them in real life. And I think that one of my goals with Lingua Franca is to bring people in in real life to this house to do intimate things like this, because I do feel like if you guys do that in your own life, it does combat this, you know, I guess, anxiety for me. So maybe that helps other people too. I don't know. Maybe you guys all want to just be in bed on your Instagrams, which is totally fine too, whatever works. But for me, that's what Lingua Franca was kind of surprisingly came out of it and wasn't thoughtful. It just happened organically.
So and so well done. So I was just thinking as a just punctuation to what I was saying a minute ago. What we do, I don't think what we do is important, but I do believe that if we can make what we do part of something bigger than it is, then it becomes important. And it inspires us and motivates us as an organization, as individuals, as professionals, as personally, in ways that I never would have imagined possible. So, because you really feel like you're making a difference. And our business is all about purpose, and what we do and how we do it, and it's making a difference in a meaningful way. So,
You both absolutely are, and it's really kind of notable the way you both clearly use your voices and your platforms for good. You also, by the way, are kind of natural-born mental health professionals, because everything you're touching on is actually based in psychology research. So this importance of connection and community and this sense of belonging, humor and playfulness, connection to kind of the greater good and a cause. These are all things I can bring up the data and show you, but it's based in research. So you really are doing such meaningful, wonderful work. Going back to this idea of using your voice and your platform for good, maybe we'll wrap up before Q&A with a question about hope and what can be done. So what gives both of you hope? You've both mentioned kind of the state of the world. It's pretty bleak in a lot of ways. So as you're using your voice for good, what gives you hope, and also what can we do, you know, for those of us who would like to use our voice for good, what can be done?
I guess I'll go first. This was not discussed on the Zoom questions. Therefore, I actually, I am not going to name drop, but I am. I had drinks with Senator Gillibrand yesterday, actually Monday, and then I went to Madonna after that. It was a very yin yang day.
Got home very late.
Yes. So I asked Senator Gillibrand the exact same question, and she had all this stuff she's working on in Washington, and I thought, well, my God, at least they're doing something, focusing, and she's working with the ERC and all this stuff. And what came out while I was sitting there, because honestly, she's a really good friend, so I would say this to her, sometimes she just gets really intense into the politics, and I'm like, well, okay. It's like listening to a mathematician, going on. I'm like, okay, Kirsten. But what I felt in her voice was passion, and it was so inspiring to me. Whatever, it just so happened she can actually affect real change in Washington, but it wasn't even that got me inspired. It was her passion for something, because I think the first thing I do when I feel depressed and really without hope, which is really easy, and it's going to even get easier to do in 2024 as we go through this, I try to figure out something I'm passionate about, and it's actually the hardest thing. You just want to lie there and not do anything, because it's just depressing, and I've been in dark places. And so my only advice is, the only thing that works for me is to try and get out of my head, go play the piano with my kids, try and figure out something that I love to do, and do that. And it could be just going on a walk with your dog, or going and playing. Do what you can to keep yourself passionate, because I feel like what's happening right now, people are just becoming, not passionate, because it feels like too much. And so why would I even do this? Nothing's going to matter. It's just, it does matter, and I think that's all one can do, because, it's going to be, I don't know, I don't have the advice. That's what I try to do. It doesn't always work. But I was inspired by her passion, because that's nice to know that someone in Washington is working hard. And so I'd be inspired by anyone else's passion in something that they're doing, because it's moving the world forward. And I feel like that's what I want to hear is happening, not moving backwards.
Beautiful, thanks.
It's only you that does that. You guys know that? It's like he's first.
So, recently, I was at a meeting with the mayor,
Oh, so
of New
now
York.
he's named Rob.
Knowing that in our coalition, we have all these members with all these different corporations involved, I said to him, if we can bring 100+ companies together, who all would agree upon best practices in the workplace, you can change culture, because you can reach in that individual process of some of these multinationals, millions of people and potentially their families. And then at the same time, Deepak, who's part of our coalition, he'll do a meditation, and a group meditation, and then everybody, we set it off in a good way. So he says, I'm all in. So which was very inspiring and encouraging. He says, you have my whole staff, you have the whole organization, we're committed to make this what it was. We had a gathering in our office on December 5th, which from now on will always be Wellness at Work Day. And we had 150 companies present who all agreed to commit to best practices, understanding that mental health initiatives is one of the easiest things to sell, because it's not an expense, but it's an investment that pays itself back 5 to 10 times or more over time, and that it unequivocally, quantifiably improves retention, recruitment, morale, and ultimately productivity. And there's no CEO anywhere that's going to say no to this. So, because their job is to do all of those things. So, the mayor's in, everybody's in, then we say, now let's challenge everybody everywhere, and I do believe you can change culture everywhere. And everybody is wanting and encouraged and inspired to do this. And I think the notion of the sense of community today is unprecedented, and that's the positive of these social platforms. We understand what the negatives are, and we're trying to deal with it. And I do think there is a lot of hope and positivity that come from it. I agree this is going to be a very tough year, regardless of what happens in November. It's going to be a tough year, and but I think there is a collective will to make it as good as possible. So that's what
Amazing, yeah, and this idea of shifting culture, think about impact, that's really how we can have the greatest impact, is by shifting culture.
So one of the things, also the coalition, just this is a shameless promotion, mental health coalition. And you can support us if you want. You can reach Amanda or Nicole in the back. But it's built on business principles. Okay, and I do think that's why we've been able to be successful. And it's built on the notion of scale and leverage and transparency and impact. And there's very clear goals, very clear expectations in everything we set out to do, and I think that's why we've been able to have a lot of the successes. And we never imagined we'd get the likes of a Lingua Franca Townhouse, but it's been a great
You
year.
should feel lucky. We usually just throw like out.
Yes, awesome. Well, thank you both. I know we have some questions that came in.
Most of my best ideas come to me when I'm working out. So sometimes if I'm stuck, I have to just get out. And I think that's just change up the routine. I get very lazy, my husband is, so I just never want to get up if I sit down, ever. And that is my moment of joy is just walking around the block. Get out and walk out and do your whatever you need. Little moments are exactly it, but they're hard.
That's a hard question, and I know when I'm able to accomplish what I set out to accomplish, I do feel so much better at the end of the day. But I try to exercise when I can, and I try to meditate every day, but I don't, and I fail miserably. And I'm also very focused on sleep now, because I used to think the key to wellness was nutrition, exercise, but the third leg on that stool is sleep. So there is all this evidence I've since learned that you have to get some sleep.
And what about
So I sleep during
you?
meetings. I sleep.
I just got the Aura ring. Does anyone have the Aura ring that I used to make so much fun of? I have the Aura ring. Now I'm obsessed with it. I'm like, how much of rum did I get last night?
Mine are actually similar. Outdoor time, exercise, and time with loved ones is major for me. Again, this idea of connection, and now it's happening to me. Yeah, time with loved ones is a major one. I always feel kind of replenished and reset when I'm able to do that.
They say that like the happy people, you know, they have the zones in the Mediterranean, and then the actual longest living people,
Take drugs.
probably, but they also, besides having the Mediterranean diet, besides having the diet, with the ones that actually are the longest is they have the most social interactions. So they have the most group of friends in real life. Very important to know. So I know we're going to dinner after this, and I'm very excited because I've only seen you on my phone. So anyway, I think that is something that I need to work hard on. I need to work harder on my in real life moments because it's proven to be a longevity, booster. Yeah, so I think that's something I'm sure everyone in this room could work a little harder on. And not just the like, we're going to a fabulous party, but those real moments where you feel a connection with somebody that kind of happen over a meal where you're not, mingling. I think that's really important.
Absolutely. Other questions?
I'll ask the social question, so Kenneth, you might think I'm a plant. You both have figured out a way to put purpose and mental health at the center of your business, and whether you think that work is ever done or not is for you to decide and discuss. But as a room full of fashion people,
Christy to the rescue.
what's some advice that you have for people that want to put purpose and mental health in the center of their business, but might be nervous about the business consequences or the tying a cause too close to business?
I'm the wrong person to answer that because I have jumped off many cliffs that are far more dangerous than mental health. What I will say is the first internet fight you have and get canceled by is always the scariest. And then it gets progressively easier. That's just the state of the world. I think you have to do what feels authentic to you. So if you don't feel authentic about talking about it, that's okay. I think that's going to not work. I think if you do feel, I'm very outspoken in life, I'm sure you can tell, and it wouldn't be authentic for me to have a brand that I wasn't able to express myself through. I just wouldn't do it. And so I think if it's authentic for you to do that, you ought to, and you will know. And if you are feeling that desire and urge, do it, but you don't have to. I also think there's a lot of room for companies to not make these big statements, and that's okay too, because we need companies that are also just doing other things that are fun. We actually need, maybe Taylor Swift doesn't need to be political too, maybe this Swiffer doesn't need to have a comment on the person, you know what I'm saying? So I think there has been this jump to do that, and I think if it feels something that you feel very personal about doing, you should absolutely do it. But it's okay if you don't want to, and I think that needs to be said because a lot of people feel that they should and they probably shouldn't. And you can always feel it when it's like, what? You're talking about this, Unfortunately, we've been vocal from day one, so now if I don't give a comment on something, it becomes a problem, but.
We'll all be paying attention.
Okay. Auditing me now, God. Okay, what about you?
Look, I think if you can, we instituted, Jed is my new partner in crime, president of the company. We instituted unlimited PTO. Before that, we had everybody had a mental health day. So, but at the end of the day, I mean, if you teach people, treat people like adults, and you empower them with the authority to make their own decisions, there's a lot of evidence that suggests that it enables them to be way more productive, and at the end of the day, the company becomes equally such. So we've tried to make these decisions, and I do believe at the end that will be the case, and we'll figure it out. And I think this is something everybody's living with. So how do you navigate it in a way that empowers people rather than disables them?